This presentation grew out of a discussion about a certain concept developed in paper 104, 105, and 106, felt too intellectual and believed to have little to do with our everyday life. On the contrary, I want to show how much our lives are conditioned by these eternal realities. Therefore, I will focus on linking the realities above with those below. So this presentation will take place in two parts. The first part, entitled I Am, the Genesis of Reality, deals with the origin of origins, what happened in eternity infinity. To bring those eternity events within our finite comprehension, the narrative of the authors of the Urantia book used a chronology warning us it never existed in infinity, but which serves as a framework for approaching a partial understanding of absolute origin and infinite destiny. Starting with the existential concept of the I Am, the chronology unfolds in three phases: pre-existential, existential, and absolute, culminating in the eternalization of the seven absolute of infinity, personalities, patterns, and absolute potentials. In fact, the boundaries of infinity, from minus infinity to plus infinity. The second part, entitled I Am, Promulgation of Reality, continues the chronology of eternity's events. The I Am relationship of unity begets the duality relationship of the seven absolute of infinity. And this duality begets the triunity relationship, the interassociation, integration, and unification of trinities and triodities. In fact, the foundation of all universe reality. Thus, the stage of the universe is set, actuals are present, and potential exists. The author told us, it is not enough that the ascending mortal should know something of the relations of deity to the genesis and manifestation of cosmic reality. He should also comprehend something of the relationship existing between himself and the numerous levels of existential and experiential realities, of potential and actual reality. And they continue, man's terrestrial orientation, his cosmic insight, and his spiritual directionization are all enhanced by a better comprehension of universe realities and their technique of interassociation, integration, and unification. As above, so below. This is the universal Father's plan of evolutionary ascension, a program unreservedly accepted by the Eternal Son when he concurred in the Father's proposal, let us make mortal creature in our own image. We may deduct what is below is an experiential actualization in time and space of what is above in eternity. This applies to all realities, personal and non-personal, on all levels and ages of the universe. In retrospect, when we look at the nature of these diverse and varied realities, we quickly realize intuitively, but also intellectually, that everything leads back to a single origin. For example, if we go back in time, we can conclude that the diversity of creation on Urantia originated with a single-celled bacterium that appeared some 3.4 billion years ago in the Archean era. This bacterium then divided and multiplied according to a very precise process. Indeed, the pattern of the ion. And this is why evolution is volitive and not random. In the same way, we are born into life by fertilization of the ovum by the sperm carrying the DNA, the genetic capital, in which the whole plan of our physical evolution is enclosed. Then internal cell division takes place, resulting into then a multitude of specialized cells, which by inter-association, integration, and unification form the organs of the human being. This concept of unity, dividing into duality, then growing into something perfectly constituted, triunity, derives from the I am patterns. I suggest keeping this in mind during the presentation. We can better understand how much the I am create, control, and support our lives if we realize that we are using patterns and models of association and organizations originating from the existential level. It is literally true that in him we live, we move, and we have our existence. The original life plasm of an evolutionary world must contain the full potential for all future developmental variation and for all subsequent evolutionary changes and modifications. Let's have a look to factual realities. Generally speaking, we mentally conceive what surrounding us represent total reality, not only in the present moment, but in future past. We usually classify total reality into 4 radically different categories or levels: matter, energy in all its forms; mind, the thinking, perceiving, and feeling mechanism, consciousness; 3, spirit, the values, truth, beauty, and goodness; and personality, changes, self-consciousness, and free will. All these universal realities function in unity within ourselves. Our physical systems are subordinated, our body and its system. Our intellectual mechanism is coordinated in our mind. Our adjuster, the spiritual force, is pre-personal and become potentially directive. Our personality is superordinate, self-consciousness, and free will. Evaluation, arbitration, decision, action, that's the personality. Our personality causes spirit to strive for the mastery of matter energy through the mediation of mind. In other words, supremacy leads to power personality synthesis. And personality can make a gift to God, consecration of free will, to do God's will. Our adjuster always seeks to create in us the insatiable desire to do God's will and to be like him. Therefore, he is potentially directive. His presence creates a spiritual tension within our selfish animal nature. And our personality must position itself by exercising its free will between egoism and altruism, self-satisfaction of ego or loving service. Our adjuster destiny is to become one with us, unification of divinity with humanity. There are other realities to look at, temporal. From human perspective, there's another way of conceiving reality, not functionally, but temporally. Let's imagine a person who wants to build an abode. On finite level, personality and energy are two distinct realities. So the person is a personal reality. The building material is matter, a non-personal reality. The planning stage, the abode, is a potential reality and becomes an actual reality when completed. From the time-space point of view, actual represent what was and what is. Potential is what becomes and what will be. Personal is who is acting. And non-personal is what is reacting. But in this picture, 4 pictures, illustrating the various universal realities, something is missing. Where do they come from? What is their origin? Pattern or archetype. It is necessary to revisit the concept of pattern, for the I am is the source of pattern, and use them to qualified, unqualified realities on existential level. If energy and personality are the two pre-existential expressions of the I am, patterns configure and animate those two, and on existential level, the 7 absolute of infinity, trinity, triunity, and triodity. For me, as I consider, patterns are the result of the original and creative thoughts of the I am, the mechanism and principle for the development of his plan. If the 7 absolute of infinity, which we will look in a moment, are the beginnings of reality as a whole, patterns are the tool permeating all realities. Pattern can be projected as material, spiritual, or mindal, or any combination of these energies. It can pervade personalities, identities, entities, or non-living matter. But pattern is pattern and remains pattern. Only copies are multiplied. The verb can, which is in white, imply that use of patterns are dependent on personality's free will. Pattern can configure energy, but do not create or control it. The reality of patterns consists of its energy, its mind, its spirit, or material component, which shows that they are universally used, both above and below. It should be noted that personality as a quality is not a pattern, for it is a unique gift from the Universal Father and cannot be copied. But the forms of personalities or identities derive from patterns. Patterns function in our everyday life. For instance, in our societies, our cultures and religion, on every aspect of our existence. But we are not even aware of them because they are such an integral part of our being. Let's take a few examples. On level of non-living matter, the gravity, weak, strong, and electromagnetic forces. On level of identities and entities, for example, governments, the principle of separation between legislative, judicial, and executive powers, as well as justice, power, and sovereignty. On spiritual level, love, mercy, and ministry. On human level, on Urantia, there are 48 units of pattern control, trait determiners in the sex cells of human reproduction. So, revealing the origin of reality. By definition, nothingness produces nothing. Therefore, for any reality to exist, human logic implies the recognition of a first cause, static, all-inclusive, of everything that can be visible or invisible to us. The only uncaused, which the revelators introduce as the I am, whose solitary existence in infinity is the origin, history, and destiny of all reality. Inclusiveness implies that nothing can exist outside the I am. Otherwise, other I ams would exist. We may draw a parallel with the single-celled bacterium seen above. The authors reveals also that by volition, the I am static becomes potential, associative, creative, evolutional, supreme, and ultimate. For the first time in the history of humanity, a rational conceptual explanation of the genesis of all realities is revealed in the Urantia book, satisfying our scientific, philosophic, and religious mind, nourishing our soul, enhancing our love for, and comforting our faith in God. The universe philosophers introduce 1. A first postulate, the eternity existence of the I am as the primal source of all realities. First postulate, the existence of infinity of the static I am. A second postulate, and concomitant therewith, they introduce the self-segmentation of the I am into the primary self-relationship, the 7 phases of infinity. That's the second postulate, the self-segmentation into 7 primary self-relationships. And a third postulate. And simultaneous with this assumption is the eternity appearance of the 7 absolute of infinity and the eternalization of the duality association of the 7 phases of the I am and these seven absolutes. Third postulate, the eternity of appearance of the seven absolute of infinity. Chronology in eternity. Those three philosophic postulates are indeed a concession made for us, living in time and space, even for the philosophers of the universe and for the revelators themselves. Understanding the I am as infinite, inclusive of all reality, our finite mind is just powerless. Our imagination is lost in conjecture. But we can always work with concepts as long as they are logical, acceptable, and do not contravene reason. However, a first cause represents a starting point for our finite reflection. And only our living faith in God as a creator, controller, and infinite upholder can be instrumental in our acceptance of the postulate of the I am. And only the Spirit of truth and thought adjuster will help us enhancing the ever-progressing reality of our personal religious experience, God consciousness. Ever remember that man's comprehension of the Universal Father is a personal experience. God as your spiritual father is comprehensible to you and to all other mortals. But your experiential worshipful concept of the Universal Father must always be less than your philosophical postulate of the infinity of the first source and center. So I am first postulate. The I am is the infinite. The I am is also infinity. The I am is unqualified, undifferentiated, inclusive of all future realities. Nothing can exist outside the I am. The actuals are still contained within their potentials, and potentials have not yet appeared within the infinity of the I am. But even in the conjectural situation, we must assume the existence of the possibility of free will. Note, however, that the Creator's thought invariably precedes creative action, implying the existence of his plan in the static, all-inclusive I am, very like the spermatozoon, which contains the entire plan of human evolution before fertilizing the ovum in one single cell. This plan is revealed by the divine counselor as the myriads of planetary systems were all made to be eventually inhabited by many different types of intelligence creatures, beings who could know God, receive the divine affection, and love him in return. However, the possibility of free will within the I am is conceptually inescapable and practically unavoidable. Otherwise, nothing can emerge from infinity. All realities, energies, mind, spirit, and personalities, all values, love, mercy, and ministry are present in the inclusiveness of the I am and must be revealed on absolute, absolute, and finite levels. I am the second postulate. First stage of qualification of the unqualified I am. The original I am exercise a first action of volition, causing a first reaction. It may be conceived as the self-differentiation of the infinite one from the infinitude in the eternal continuum of the infinity, the I am. The I am infinity, I am infinite one, and I am infinitude. In other words, we see in the eternal I am, the infinity, the emergence of the personal I am, the infinite one, and the impersonal I am, the infinitude. That is three qualifications of the I am. Second stage of qualification of triune self-differentiation of the I am. This is the combination of the three self-differentiation that produces 7 automorphoses, the completeness of expression of the I am. Those self-metamorphoses of the I am culminated in the multiplied differentiation of deified and undeified reality, of potential and actual realities, and of certain other realities that can hardly be so classified as it is shown in this third image. Those other realities that are not so classified are presumably of mind nature, as mind is instrumental in the dynamic of unification in the power-personality synthesis. Now, the pre-personal exists in contrast with the non-personal. The pre-potential emerges with the pre-actual and other pre-realities. They are the pre-reality inclusive of all realities not yet apparent. So let's take a closer look at the 7 auto-metamorphoses. I am as I am, the relationship of original. I am, the universal one of infinity. The personal aspect will provide the basis for the personalization of the actual I am, the father of personality. And the non-personal aspect will provide the basis for the I am pure energy and pure spirit. The eternal I am, the first source and center, is what makes this auto-metamorphosis possible, while potential and the actual become the universal boundaries of realities and the premises of time and space. Relationship of actualities. I am the universal father. This is the primordial personality relationship of the I am with the actual pre-reality. The revelation of the personality of the eternal Son as the absolute of personality. And the absolute personality of the Son makes absolute the fact of God's paternity and institute the potential sonship for all personalities. The I am the universal controller. It is the primordial non-personal relationship of the I am with actual pre-reality. The source of the non-personal archetypes from which all reality is made up. The cause of eternal paradise. the universal creator. I am one with the eternal Son. The union of Father and Son in the presence of paradise initiates the creative circle, which is consummated in the appearance of the joint personality and Havana, the eternal universe. The essence of the unity of the Father-Son manifested on all levels of the actual. Relationships of potentialities. I am the infinite upholder. I am self-associated. This is the primordial association of the statics and potential of reality. In this relationship, all qualified and unqualified are compensated, understood as the universal absolute, the unifier of the deity and the unqualified absolute. I am the infinite potential. I am self-qualified. This is the infinity benchmark, bearing eternal witness to the volitional self-limitation of the I am, by virtue of which there was achieved threefold self-expression and self-revelation, understood as the deity absolute. I am the infinite capacity. I am static, reactive. This is the endless matrix, the possibility for all future cosmic expansion. This phase of the I am is perhaps best conceived as the supergravity presence of the unqualified absolute. I am third postulate, the seven absolute of infinity. The sevenfold prime relationship within the I am, eternalized as the seven absolute of infinity. The verb eternalizes suggests that the seven pre-existential internal relationships become existential. In other words, they separated from the I am to become the premises of all realities. However, it should be reminded that the seven absolute of infinity have no beginning. They are eternal and have always been. Again, this sequential presentation is a concession to the human mind. The I am, as the sevenfold pre-existential, the seven absolute of infinity constitute the beginning of all reality. They are described as follows. The first source and center. The second source and center. The paradise source and center. The third source and center. The deity absolute. The unqualified absolute. And the universal absolute. Let's have a closer look. The seven absolute of infinity. Existential. The first source and center, first person of deity, and primordial archetype of non-deity. God, the universal Father, creator, controller, and upholder. The second source and center, the second person of deity, the eternal and original Son, the absolute personality realities of the I am, and the basis for the revelation of the I am personality. The source and center of paradise, second archetype of non-deity. the eternal isle of paradise, the basis for the revelation of the I am force, and the foundation for the establishment of gravitational control in all universe. And for the third source and center, third person of deity, the conjunct actor, the infinite integrator of the cosmic energies of paradise with the spiritual energies of the eternal sun. The deity absolute, the potentially personal causal possibilities of all universal reality, the totality of all deity potential. The unqualified absolute, static, reactive, and waiting. The unrevealed cosmic infinity of the I am. The totality of non-deified reality, and the finality of all non-personal potential. And finally, the universal absolute, unifier of the deified and the non-deified, correlator of the absolute and the relative. The universal absolute, being static, potential, and associative, compensates for the tension between the eternal and the incomplete. So, summary. If we agree that all universal reality has an origin, then we must agree that the origin contains all reality, not yet disclosed, being material, intellectual, spiritual, or personal. I guess the revelators must have been embarrassed to answer the questions of the forum members about the origin of the universe. So they introduced the concept of I am and a chronology in eternity to provide an acceptable framework for approaching eternity. They start from the premise that in eternity and infinity, the I am is one, solitary and static. Everything is confined and unified within him. Actual are in potentials, and potential have not yet appeared in infinity. It is a summary, okay? Well, at some point in eternity, his solitude weighs heavily on him. By volition, I am decides to devise the universal plan that shall reveal himself. But alone, what can he do? Says I am to himself, I shall use the first pattern of relationship, division, to free myself from the fetters of solitude and liberate what is personal, the deified, from what is not, the undeified, in order to control energy. This division revealed three pre-realities: the I am original, the I am non-personal, and the I am personal. Says I am to himself, I am still alone and I need help because I can't develop my plan at this stage. So I'm going to use the second pattern of relationship, dual association, combining 2 by 2 to bring out the pre-realities I need for the next stage. Those associations reveal 7 pre-realities of the I am. Say the I am to himself, these 7 pre-existing realities, I'm going to make them existing and autonomous on their own. By this operation of eternalization, this dual relationship of association turn into 7 absolute realities. This operation results in the establishment of the 7 absolute, the limits of infinity that prepare the way for the cosmic stage. Again, potentials and actuals are emergent. the personal and the non-personal are present, and their integration. Summary of chronology. First postulate, second postulate, and third postulate. And you have here on the bottom of the screen the 7 combination of the 3 pre-realities: I am plus I am deified plus I am undeified, I am plus I am deified, I am plus I am undeified, etc., that turn into the pre-existential, I am the universal one of infinity, universal Father of the Son, which turn into the third postulate, the first source and center, the second source and center. So, conclusion of part 1. I'm well aware that this approach to the genesis of reality is a new concept, complicated by the terminology used, but it's nonetheless understandable and satisfies our logic and common sense. After all, what we create, think, and decide has to come from somewhere. Nothingness, by definition, produces nothing. Reason and logic demand a first cause, a cause without cause. We have noticed that the term absolute is often used to qualify certain existential realities, such as the 7 absolute of infinity. The term absolute signifies the fullness and totality of all that can exist within the reality it qualifies, the maximum of its expression. Each of the 7 absolute of infinity is, for us, the limit of infinity. And from the time viewpoint, minus infinity for potential and plus infinity for actual. And the Father is the source of both. Finally, in the association of the deity, universal and unqualified absolutes, potentiality is absolute, while actuality is emergent. In the association of the second, third, and paradise source and centers, actuality is absolute, while potentiality is emergent. In the originality of the first source and center, we cannot say that either actuality or potentiality is either existent or emergent. The Father is. The entire scheme of universal creation and evolution on all experiencing levels is apparently a matter of the conversion of potentialities into actualities. And this transmutation has to do equally with the realm of space potency, mind potency, and spirit potency. At this stage of our presentation, absolutes exist thanks to the pattern of the dual association relationship, but there is a third type, the triune association, which characteristic is functional, and through them does the universal Father exercise immediate control and personal over the master function of infinity. This is what we will discuss in the second part of this presentation. This is the time for question and answer.
Thank you very much, George. Obviously, a lot to digest and a big goal to understand, but let me open it up for questions. Colette.
It's a very good work. And what I like is the words you use to express all those conceptual terms. What is difficult with the Urantia book is to vulgariser le texte, vulgarize This is the most thing to do with the Urantia book. And you succeeded this task. And also, I appreciate the fact that you tell us that the I am is unqualified. This is what I was thinking, that the I am was unqualified. Totality is unqualified, and we have to qualify it. And you presented how the I am is qualifying himself.
Thank you, Colette.
Thanks, Colette. Matt.
I put up a thing on turtles all the way down. It's about infinite regress. It would be good to add this idea to that place as a further article on Wikipedia for people interested in infinite regress, where they could see another viewpoint that is pertinent to that idea of the turtles going all the way down.
For those of you who aren't familiar with that link, so Bertrand Russell was a famous atheist, and he was supposed to have said given a talk, and some woman from a Aboriginal culture explained that in her view the world was the universe rested on the back of a turtle, and he said, "Well, ma'am, what's underneath the turtle?" And she said, "Well, another turtle." And so he said, "Well, it's got to be turtles all the way down, right?" And he posed that as a criticism, actually, of this idea that of causation, that you have to have an infinite number of turtles. But of course, we know from the Urantia book and other things that it is that paradox that drives you back to the one cause, obviously, that George talked about so much, the I am, in the presentation. Jeff.
George, can you elaborate a little bit on the react at the I am level for me?
Well, as I said in my presentation, this is a concession that the revelator do for us, presenting like in a type of chronology. And we must admit in that chronology for our mind, who is prisoner of time and space, that there is a beginning. And because we are in time and space, that beginning is the cause that has no cause, the uncaused. And this uncaused, in order to start functioning, has to have his own volition. And because he is one, he has to, at a moment, to separate himself in two. That creates this tension between the personal and the non-personal. And this is the first step of qualification of the I am. Otherwise, if you don't admit that the I am has a volition, then you just stay the I am as it is, unified, static, and nothing can appear, so to speak. So that's how I understand that. But again, this chronology has never existed because it's on the existential level, even in the infinite level.
Yeah, I understand the act part. It's the react part. So, dividing into personal and non-personal, where's the reaction? Is that the tension?
It is a tension because when you separate something which is unified in two separate things, automatically you create a tension, a tension between those two. And in the foreword, they present that in a different way as on paper 105. And in the foreword, they present this I am by separating himself from the deified and the non-deified, which create a tension between those two. And that tension is has the solution by the universal absolute.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. Good question. Good discussion, George. I mean, doesn't on some level that the I am still exists, and so it's not just that it broke into a piece. It's that somehow those things are still unified on a different level, and therefore there's you sort of have an energy between them, and a tension. It's not just breaking one thing in two halves. It's somehow dividing something that's still unified, and therefore there's still a energy, cohesion, tension, maybe. Yuri.
How important is it to find these patterns from our individual perspective all the way up? I mean, what goal does that make through our growth process?
Well, as I said, so above, so below. And I think this is important to realize. All our life, our common life, our day-to-day life are permeated by patterns. And those patterns come from the I am. And as I said, for instance, in our governments, we have this separation between the three power, and also in our own body we have that pattern of unity, which come duality, which come trinity, and so on and so forth. So in our everyday life we have what has happened in eternity, because as I said, the experiential level is only the actualization of the existential level. So all what exists in the on that existing on the infinity level exists also in our world. So if you look at yourself, if you observe what you're doing, how you are thinking, how you're reacting in your day-to-day life, you will discover those patterns in your own life. And patterns can be modified in your life. For instance, the notion of loving service to others, that's a pattern. And this is a pattern of the infinite spirit. Love is the pattern of God, and mercy is the pattern of the Son. So all what you do in this area, it is you are actualizing something that is infinite, that come from the I am. Does that make sense? I am sorry because I don't speak so fluently English, so I must find my words, but I try to do.
Thank you. I mean, if the floor is still mine, it makes perfect sense. And patterns is everything. And finding and what comes to mind following your thoughts or your words is that the whole process of growth is actually discovering and modifying and following these patterns to perfection. If I sort of get it.
You are more than you are right now, I guess, right? We're becoming something, fulfilling that. Joy, I think you're next.
Yeah, along this same line of the idea that the I am includes all possibilities, we see in our temporal life that there is evil, sin, and iniquity. So would you say that the I am also includes the possibilities of evil, sin, and iniquity?
The Revelator told us that evil is not a reality because it cannot go up to the end. And iniquity has been brought on Urantia because of Caligacia. Caligula brought on Urantia inequity. Otherwise, there would have not been inequity on our planet, I believe. So
Right.
evil is something that is not real. Of course, it has some repercussion, but evil doesn't really exist. So, I am a little bit confused because there is some word that sorry.
Free will. Free will. That's the word, free will, the potential for choice.
Yeah, and evil is something. It is a bad decision made by our personality, and it is sure that free will has that possibility. But we are told that the definitive death is just the non-living being, and personality goes back to the supreme, but it is as you have never existed if you embrace evil.
Right, but it is evil. It does say that evil is not really a reality, but I mean, but nonetheless, it's a temporal. For us, it's a temporal reality, and so I wonder. I kind of picture, the three absolutes of potentiality, and so I'm wondering if within them there exists the possibility of these wrong choices, and if that's part of the plan, because that's part of how we grow, is the possibility has to be there.
Yeah, when you are talking about the three absolute
Of potentiality.
Potentiality, it has to do with matter, with spirit, and with mind. And in my opinion, there is no place for evil because they are absolute. Evil is existing as such on the experiential level, but not on the existential level. And what they told us, there are three levels of this kind. And so it is the last level, inequity, that is dangerous, which leads to spiritual death. And this is an interesting question because we are living in a world where there is a lot of inequity. And this is a real drama because it is just like when you are on a circle, you are walking on a circle of good, and the center of the circle is God. As long as you are circulating in that circle, you are safe with God because God is the center. If you take a tangent from this circle, there is a point where you go too far and there is no possibility of return, and that is inequity.
It's it's a divergence, it's a distortion, it's a misalignment from reality, which to us, from our limited perspective, looks and feels real, but from the eternal perspective is not, maybe. Bill?
Well, the free will is the potential for making wrong choices. And we have to really go in there and understand all these true depth of the infinity of the I am by exploring these wrong choices that we can make and then get past them and get into the right choices again.
Thank you, Bill.
Thanks, Bill. Let's do Jean-Pierre and then Michael. So Jean-Pierre.
Yes. Go back to as above, as below. We have been told that personality cannot express itself unless it has a vehicle of expression. So when the I am was not differentiated, there was no way for the personal to find self-expression because it has no vehicles. So it had to create something which was not personal for the personal to express itself through the non-personal. That was the first step. In other words, if you don't have a medium to express yourself, you cannot know yourself because you know yourself as you express yourself. And so, like, when everything is blue, then you don't know what blue is, right? Because you don't have any contrast to the blue aspect of reality. So even the I am, in order to know itself, has to find ways to express itself. And then the vehicles then becomes spiritual vehicles, mental vehicles, and then, material vehicles. And then at each stage, the I am finds a way to know itself. I am all this, and I can express myself on this. As above, as below, the only way I can know myself on the physical level is to have a physical vehicle. The only way I know my thoughts is because I have a mind. And the way I know the Urantia levels of reality is through the soul, and so on. We copy the same pattern as above. So I'm glad that you mentioned that, George, that we in time and space are actualizing in time and space what is already present in eternity. Thank you.
Thank you, Jean-Pierre. Michael.
I thought your opening on as above is below, as above below, about elaborating on the role of pattern was really a wonderful insight, one I had not considered quite to the depth that you had presented. But I am reminded of, I think it was Henkel's comment about ontogeny recapitulates philology, where the evolution of the individual recapitulates the evolution of life on the planet. And I just, that felt like a good fit to the ideas that you were presenting. I have sort of a sidebar question. You drew so much from paper 105, which I had read just this past week in preparation for today. And it opens up with talking about to conceive eternity and infinity as an almost limitless ellipse, which I'm sure you've read that first. And ellipse requires two foci, and I was wondering if you have ever thought about what those foci might be.
I have been trying to think about this particularity, but I didn't get any very far on that thing, on that thought. But do you personally something to tell us about this concept of ellipse?
Oh, unfortunately, you're cutting out. It's a great question. It actually came up in our study group last week too. You read about the circle of eternity, through most of the book, but then here they use the word ellipse, and what does that mean? Is it somehow moving? Is it so there's more than one part? There's the differentiations. It's a great question. Roy?
Yes, I've just been mulling over in my mind something that Joy asked about evil, sin, and inequity, and is that above? And it seems to me, and I don't have quotes or but just from remembering things that I've read, was that evil was error thinking, and sin was mistaken judgment, and equity is just a repeated development of those ideas, but that the will of God is the way of God, which is the right and proper and perfect thing to do under any situation, no matter what the alternative is. So we can't carry evil, sin, and equity much further because it's not the will of God. It's not the way of God. So I can't see that those elements would function, particularly all the way back up to the I am.
Yeah, which I agree with, because we live in time and space, which means experience. We grow by experience. And to make mistake is a growing process. But to know that we are making a mistake and we continue to make that mistake, that is evil. But if we understand and if we pursue this evil, then it becomes inequity. And I cannot imagine that this inequity could be on the existential level, because as you say, this is God's will is perfection, is divinity, and we are here to make experience, and we have our own free will to make those choices, and it is up to us to continue to make mistake or not, and to realize that when we make mistake, then we must adjust our our free will. And as I said in my presentation, you have always two options. You have the option of selfishness, and you have the option of service, loving service. So this is the only way to grow for us. It is by those experiences. So yes, inequity doesn't really exist because it cannot stand up to the end, but there are consequences of inequity, and we see that on our world with all these drugs, with all those things. So, but on the existential level, there is no evil, of course not.
Yeah, thank you, Roy. That was a great question. Yeah, and we know that, you know, iniquity, even on the Lucifer's level, can't persist, right? It's going to result in annihilation. It contains the seeds of its own annihilation. Yeah. Jeff put in the chat this ellipse in the circle. You know, a circle is an ellipse where the two foci have converged, and maybe it is that act of the I am or the circle, the differentiated I am is the tension, and eventually it comes back to the circle. But now, as it's playing out, it is the ellipse. So that I thought that was quite good. So Royce,
if the thought adjuster is within us, and its job is to spiritize us, and it's successful in doing that, the bumps and scrapes and how we, you know, get cut up or bruise our knee on the way, these are like little missteps. Okay, but in as much as we're spiritized, all of that deposits itself into the Supreme. Not our mistakes, not evil or anything else, but into the Supreme. If our mistakes don't go to the Supreme, it makes absolutely no sense why it would go elsewhere or even further up the ladder. And I just wanted to add, years ago, I was doing a presentation, and I was doing the I am. and I took the letters themselves, IAM, and turned it into an acronym. And it was intellectual, aesthetic, and moral. And those things translate into truth, beauty, and goodness.
Mhm.
That's nice. Let me call on Martha because I don't think she's gone, and then we'll go to the repeat speakers. Martha.
Thank you. Thank you, George, very much. I haven't gotten to see you since France in 2002, where I went with Jean Bard to the conference. But Jean had this, she was my teacher for 30 years, and she had this beautiful, I asked her one time, because free will is from personality, which is changeless, which is obviously from the great I am, how can I make an evil decision or a sinful decision? And she said, okay, all that fear is creating that sin, iniquity inside me. I can go with that negative self, or I can grab onto my free will up here in my personality and pull up out of that negativity. And I thought that was the neatest explanation I'd ever heard. Thank you again. I appreciate this.
Thanks, Martha. Yuri?
Okay, quickly. They're creators, they're creatures, and possibly something in between. Can you touch on the role that we play so I can understand better my job here in creation in context of creatures versus creators and maybe the third group? And whether there's any integration or whether they overlap or any of that.
All of us, we contribute to the elevation of our local universe along with our Creator Son. Our job is to master ourselves. And this is an important aspect because the progress of the planet will come person by person. And it is the transformation of the person who will help our Creator Son to make his local universe a better way, a better place to live. This is our responsibility as human beings. And once we understand that we are part of the process, that we can be useful for our Creator Son, then we understand where is our role. Each of us, we have a personality, and each of us, we have our own expertise, our own field of experience. And by trying to do God's will, we elevate our way of living. We are an inspiration for other people. So we are living in a community, and each person in that community has a responsibility. So in my opinion, this is what is the power personality synthesis. It is the fact, and as I explained in my presentation, the personality has the power to make the choice and to make a gift to God. And that gift is to do God's will.
Jean-Pierre.
Okay. I was thinking of that. They say that the people who are close to the being annihilated, in a sense, they have annihilated themselves, because it said that they don't have any more values left before that decision is made. There's no more love within them. So we know that if you don't have any moral value, all what is left really is cosmic suicide, because you have no more value, and so you don't belong anymore to that which is real. If so, not being real anymore, you don't have a room if there's no place for you in the universe.
Right. We get to come back next week and continue this discussion.